In Sri Lanka's east, police were edgy today as they raided a base of an Islamist group linked to last week's devastating terror attacks. And it follows another raid Friday night that led to a raging gun battle with terror suspects who then blew themselves up, along with 10 civilians, said to be their wives and children. This child was caught in the crossfire and survived. ISIS says 3 of its militants were in that house, a claim bolstered by what police say they found: bomb-making materials and a flag ISIS has made infamous on battlefields around the world. All of it, this massive security response, triggered by those deadly coordinated terror attacks on Easter Sunday. 6 separate blasts, 250 people slaughtered. Today, all churches in the country were closed. Susan Ormiston is in Sri Lanka, where after the blasts, the country still feels like it's being pulled apart.
Faith at St. Sebastian's is being tested. Its sanctuary still shattered. No refuge here, not yet. Sunday Mass was forbidden, too risky. Church leaders convinced the threat to Christian worship is still real, especially where the scars are so raw.
Sacred moment of lighting of the lamps.
The Fernando family were caught in the pews when the bomber detonated. Wounded and sad, they watched a live morning mass from Colombo led by Sri Lanka's Archbishop.
We are truly sorry for all the families that have lost their loved ones and their dear ones. And I ask you, dear brothers and sisters, please pray for them.
Sashika remembers a sudden explosion, screaming, then roof tiles raining down on them. A lot of people fell down dead. I couldn't believe what was happening. Jasmine's husband was able to get them all to hospital in his car.
Why do you think you survived?
That's what I'm also asking. Maybe God still wants me alive. He's keeping me. The lady next to me was broken in 2.
On the other side?
They only got out of hospital yesterday and went straight to the church to see it. It was like a jolt, Sashika said, realizing their wounds almost killed them, like 250 others. Across the country, churches are barricaded. More soldiers deployed to St. Anthony's than fathers. A massive cleanup is underway, assisted by the Army and the Navy. The clock stopped when the bomb detonated, throwing Sri Lankans back to a violent time.
Sri Lanka has endured decades of ethnic and religious violence, but almost never directed at the Christian minority. So when suicide bombers attacked here at St. Anthony's and 2 other churches, security officials concluded this was born of internal tensions, but linked to a wider terror plot.
I was absolutely shocked that it was a minority on a minority.
Dr. Pikia Soti Saravanamuthu is executive director of the Center for Policy Alternatives.
I think people are still in a state of shock. Those who are affected are still grieving, and that grief sometimes turns to anger. It's when are we going to be able to draw a line under this and say the worst part is over and we're not going to have any kind of violence.
Sri Lanka is majority Buddhist, about 70%. Hindus, Christians, and Muslims make up the rest. Last year, Buddhist-Muslim tensions escalated into riots amidst a vile hate campaign.
There have been all the accusations that the Muslims are working in ways to push the Sinhalese into a minority position in the capital city, that they are giving Sinhalese women sweets to make them infertile, all sorts of Goebbelsian kind of propaganda to suggest that the Muslims were trying to take over.
Friday, as Colombo held its breath, some Muslims walked to prayers at the Mount Lavinia Mosque. Vehicles were forbidden, security was tight. We were invited to hear from a young imam, Secretary of Youth Affairs, who delivered a stern caution.
Let us take this very clear. Terrorism does not have a religion. Terrorism is an industry. Islamophobia is an industry. So they actually frighten people, they make people scared, do not get closer.
Only a quarter of the usual faithful came to pray, afraid there will be violent reprisals against them for the bombers' murderous actions.
We as Muslim community and religious leaders and civil leaders, we are ready to cooperate with the government in order to defuse the situation.
What is your greatest fear in the next few weeks and months?
There is fear here and there. The only fear that now we have it, our community might get split into two. One is the ordinary community and the extreme groups. But people will have different view, but that view should not lead to extremism. That should not lead to terrorism.
The cost to this island nation is immense. Relative stability was encouraging investment and luring visitors. Already, business is slumping, which will quickly affect jobs.
And now it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years, I think, to recover.
That long?
I think so, because this has hit at the heart of this whole question of would you want to come and invest in this country?
In the face of terror, leaders of all faiths are urging calm and tolerance. Buddhist leader Venerable Dambara Amilatero joined an inter-religious vigil this weekend, a quiet show of strength. He acknowledged some Buddhist monks have inflamed divisions, but believes the country can resist powerful pressures to sink it back into violence. We invite the international community to help us rebuild, he says. Come here, don't abandon us, because the existing sense of harmony will let us win. It is a burning desire for nearly all Sri Lankans, fearful of the ghosts of a violent past. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Colombo.